Today you'll be reading two stories, King Alcinous' Court as well as Calypso, and the narrative focus is indirect characterization and imagery. You'll be focusing on indirect characterization for King Alcinous' Court, and you'll be focusing on imagery for Calypso. Your learning objectives is that you will be able to use annotation to help you make meaning from poetry and understand how Odysseus' bragging contributes to his indirect characterization. You will also identify 3 of the 5 different types of imagery within a story. So story 3 is King Alcinous' Court, and sometimes it's referred to as I am Laertes' son. Laertes was Odysseus' father, and so that's why it's called I am Laertes' son. And this is considered book 9 in the 24 story or 24 book epic of the Odyssey. So you have a couple of steps here. Step 1 is that as you read King Alcinous' Court, I am Laertes' son, you're going to highlight the moments where Odysseus boasts or brags about himself, his homeland, and his accomplishments. Remember that the parts that are in italics, this is some background information, and then it actually begins when we leave the italicized portion, the background information, and go into the actual text. This would be the part that Homer would speak aloud if he was giving this, telling this story to everyone. So just to give you some context, the part in King Alcinous' Court is actually in the timeline just after he leaves Calypso's island. He goes to King Alcinous' court, and this is what happens. Odysseus is found by the daughter of Alcinous, king of the Phaeacians. That evening he is a guest at court. To the ancient people of Greece and Asia Minor, all guests were God-sent. They had to be treated with great courtesy before they could be asked to identify themselves and state their business. That night at the banquet, the stranger who is washed up on the beach is seated in the guest's place of honor. A minstrel or singer is called, and the mystery guest gives him a gift of pork, crisp with fat, and requests a song about Troy. In effect, Odysseus is asking for a song about himself. He's kind of tricky. He likes to have people talk about him because he has a big ego, and so he actually asks them to sing about him. Odysseus weeps as the minstrel's song reminds him of all of his companions who will never see their homes again. Now Odysseus is asked by the king to identify himself. It is here that he begins the story of his journey. So we actually begin the story with him towards the end, telling the story in court to all of his companions. So he begins with, wily Odysseus, the lord of the flies, answered, I am Odysseus, Laertes' son, known for my many clever tricks and lies. My fame extends to heaven, but I live in Ithaca, where shaking forests hides Mount Meriton. Close by are other islands, Dilichium and wooded Xanthias and Same. All the others face the dawn. My Ithaca is set apart, most distant, facing the dark. It is a rugged land, but good at raising children. To my eyes, no country could be sweeter. As you know, divine Calypso held me in her cave, wanting to marry me, and likewise Circe, the trickster, trapped me, and she wanted me to be her husband. But she never swayed my heart, since when a man is far from home, living abroad, there is no sweeter thing than his own native land and family. So you will continue reading this on your own, but I want to remind you of your job for this particular one, and that is to highlight the moments where Odysseus boasts or brags about either himself, his homeland, or his accomplishments. I started that for you by highlighting known for my many clever tricks and lies. Also, my fame extends to heaven. That's him boasting about himself and his accomplishments and a little bit about who he is. And then my Ithaca is set apart. To say something is set apart is like not just physical distance, but it also means that it's greater than others. So you're going to finish by reading the rest of this story and highlighting all the way through. That's part of your grade, is highlighting everything. And then you're going to answer these 2 questions with complete sentences. So you're going to revisit lines 1 through 20 and tell me what does Odysseus specifically brag about and answer the questions here. And then revisit lines 21 through 49 and explain what happens on the islands of Alcinous between Odysseus' men and the people of Alcinous. You'll answer that here. Then that brings us to our second story, which is Calypso the Sweet Nymph. We looked a little bit at this picture on this in class, but this would be considered book 5. in the Odyssey, but it's the fourth story we are reading. Today we will focus on the stylistic device that authors use called imagery. Authors create images in the reader's mind using descriptive diction that appeals to our five senses of sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. Sight is also called visual imagery, hearing is called auditory imagery, touch is called tactile imagery, taste is called gustatory imagery, think of somebody's gut, and smell is called olfactory imagery. If you are in science at all, you would know this term of olfactory. So we're going to use these terms interchangeably, and what you will be doing is, as you read, you're going to highlight sensory imagery in the following colors. For sight, you will use green, hearing will be blue, touch is pink, taste is yellow, and smell is orange. So you'll read through, and again, this is our background information. The first books of the epic, books 1 through 4, tell about Odysseus' son, Telemachus. Telemachus has been searching the Mediterranean world for his father, who has never returned from the 10-year Trojan War. When we first meet Odysseus in book 5 of the epic, he is a prisoner of the beautiful goddess Calypso. The old soldier is in despair. He has spent 10 years, 7 of them as Calypso's not entirely unwilling captive, trying to get home. The goddess Athena has supported and helped Odysseus on his long journey. Now she begs her father Zeus to help her favorite, and Zeus agrees. He sends the messenger god Hermes to Calypso's island in order Odysseus released. It is important to remember that although Calypso is not described as evil, her seductive charms, even her promises of immortality for Odysseus, threaten to keep the hero away from his wife Penelope. And so we go and we read the first part, which I will read to you, and you'll see that I have already started highlighting to give you some ideas. Remember that touch is pink and green is sight. I've also included some other colors as well. Hermes heard these words. At once he fastened on his feet the sandals of everlasting gold, with which he flies on breath of air, the sea, and the land. He seized the wand he used to enchant men's eyes to sleep or wake as he desires, and flew. The god flashed bright in all his power. He touched Pieria, where from the sky he plunged to the sea and swooped between the waves, just like a seagull catching fish, wetting its whirring wings in tireless brine. So Hermes scuttled through the surging swell. Then finally he reached the distant island, stepped from the indigo water to the shore, and reached the cavern where the goddess lived. There sat Calypso with her braided curls. Beside the hearth a mighty fire was burning. The scent of citrus and a brittle pine suffused the island. Inside she was singing and weaving with a shuttle made of gold. Now you'll notice that I used quite a different, quite a few colors here, but not all of them are present. For example, I really did not see taste or gustatory, but the others were included. You'll also notice sometimes when you're highlighting that you might feel like some of them overlap. And I'll give you an example. When I wrote stepped from the indigo water to the shore, that is something that that's tactile, him stepping onto the shore. But the indigo water, that description, is much more visual or sight. It's something you can see, the color of the ocean. And so what I did was show that it kind of combined in this moment. And so you're welcome to do that, or you can just choose one or the other, and that's fine. I just wanted to show you that sometimes it's not an exact science, because what really good descriptive writers do is they actually have a lot of these kind of blur or overlap. Another example I did was a mighty fire was burning. In that moment, to me, that's something you can see, the mighty fire, but the fact that it is burning is something you would be able to feel if you were sitting next to it. So the burning sensation is something that's touch. So I just highlighted initially in green because it was something you could see, and then I changed this part to pink to let you know that it's also something you can feel. So you'll see that the rest of the story you will need to go through and do all of that highlighting all the way throughout. And this one's a little bit longer story, so you'll read all the way through to the end. And then step 2 is, it says, you have learned that authors carefully choose words when they write in order to paint a vivid image for the reader. Homer is no exception. In ancient times, his words were delivered orally so that he had to have rich connotative meaning so his audiences would stay engaged in the story. And then there's all of the senses again. So your job is to read the questions below, Find examples of imagery in Calypso the Sweet Nymph and copy and paste them for your answer. So basically, what I've asked you to do is 2 different sections. There's a great deal of nature imagery in Calypso the Sweet Nymph. Find at least 2 visual images that help you see Hermes' flight and copy and paste them below. So simply all you have to do is go back up into the story, and I highlighted a lot of this part. Look for your visual images of him actually flying, and I would like you to select a section. Remember that sight is visual, and so you'll look for the parts in the green. I might even do this whole part right here because I feel like this is a really good section right here. And I will copy it by pressing Control-C, and I will go down and I will paste it directly in there. Okay? And you are welcome to do that. You don't have to change the font or anything like this. In this particular case, you do need to put it in quotation marks because it is a quote from the actual text. So add the quotation marks, but that's all you have to do is copy and paste. And then, what images describing Calypso's island appeal to your senses of sight, hearing, and smell? Find at least 2 pieces of textual evidence of each type of imagery and copy and paste them below. So you'll have 2 for sight, you'll have 2 for hearing, and you will have 2 for smell or olfactory. And then that's done. You're done. That's all that you have to do for this particular assignment. Good luck. Go ahead and email me if you have any questions.